The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the new episode of The Personal Safety Show. My name is Marcus Melnick of Firearm Mentor, and I will be your host. Today we're going to be talking about home safety. And before we do that, I'd like to talk about Jeff Cooper's color codes of mental awareness. So the first color code of mental awareness is when someone is in condition white. And condition white means that they are oblivious to their surroundings, they're daydreaming, they're in their mobile device, they're just not aware of what goes on around them. Condition yellow is a relaxed state of alertness. It's the next step. It is just like driving defensively. So you're driving along in a residential neighborhood and you see a ball roll in the street. Well, you're in condition yellow. You slow down and stop because there's a risk of a child running after the ball, or in some cases actually an adult running after the ball into the street, and you don't want to hit them. So that's condition yellow. It's kind of like driving defensively. But when we're in our homes, generally, we are most of the time in condition white. We're sitting on the couch, we're vegging, we have our remote control in our hand, or you're sitting in the backyard with a bonfire, and you're staring at the bonfire at night. You're not aware that the bad guy just snuck into your backyard. So we're not talking about bad guys today. We're really talking about health and safety within one's home. And there's a ton of hazards that are in one's home, and we're going to be talking about identifying and preventing these types of hazards. A lot of times when we get home, we are just absolutely exhausted, and we're not thinking about how to prevent hazards or accidents, but most mishaps at home can be easily prevented. And it all begins with awareness. It begins with looking around, seeing if there's a cord that you're going to trip over, that type of thing. I'm going to give you some statistics now. In 2018, there were more than 2 million poisoning incidents reported to poison control centers. What you need to do is have that number handy. I did have to call the poison control center once, several decades ago when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, that I took my diabetic medicine at dinner, and then I forgot I took my diabetic medicine at dinner, and I took it again later on in the evening before I went to sleep and realized it and said, oh no, I double dosed. So I called the poison control center, very professional. They wanted to know if I did it intentionally, and it was totally a biff on my part. It was not at all intentional. And they told me that you really have to consume about 5 times of the recommended dose to be in danger. I did double. I was not in danger. But the Poison Control Center is a very good idea to have that programmed into your phone instead of having to scramble, especially if you have children, instead of having to scramble upon ingestion and call for help. Another statistic is 1 out of 5 older adults who falls sustains a broken bone, a head injury, or other serious injuries that they would have to go to the hospital for. The 4th largest cause of accidental death in the United States is choking. It's very important to take a CPR class. I used some of those skills recently when I was with someone who had a seizure. Most drownings in children ages 1 to 4 occur in home swimming pools. So if you have a home swimming pool, and I don't mean the little plastic ones that you can splash around in that are like 6 inches deep. I'm talking like an in-ground or above-ground pool. You're going to want to secure it with a fence. Another statistic is that home fires cause 75% of fire deaths and 73% of fire injuries. So you are more likely to be involved in a fire at home than you are anywhere else. And that comes from the NFPA, or the National Fire Protection Association. And finally, falls or falling account for half of accidental deaths in the home. And a lot of them occur at ground level and not out of a window on second story or higher. Most of it's just walking and someone trips and falls or loses their balance. So those are some common home hazards. And we're going to talk about how to prevent them. Let's talk about falling. Falls Falls can be detrimental to young children and seniors, and household products are usually associated with severe falls, including things like baby walkers, windows, trampolines, playground equipment. The way to prevent or reduce your risk of falling is to do the following. First of all, keep the floors dry. Wet floors, if they're mopped, slippery, and especially in kitchens and bathrooms. So it's a good idea to not walk on those surfaces until they dry. Another cause of falls is step stools. You need to have a sturdy step stool when you reach for things in closets. Don't climb on a chair. Certainly don't climb on a swivel chair or anything else that is not solid. Safety gates are also a very good idea. They will close off staircases from wandering children. When my children were young, I lived in a 2-story home, and at the bottom of the stairs and at the top of the stairs, we had gates. So if our young children were at the bottom of the stairs wanting to go up, and then maybe they would fall backwards, they weren't able to do that. Similarly, the bedrooms were upstairs in that home, and we didn't want any sleepwalking. And one of my children did sleepwalk a little bit. Soft and protective mats under play equipment. This could be a yoga mat. This could be one of those, they look like puzzle pieces. They're foam. It's a softer landing if somebody falls. Your bathroom should have non-slip rubber mats, not only on the floor, particularly right outside of the shower. If the bathtub or the shower is a very smooth floor, you're going to want to put down either a bath mat or they have adhesive strips that kind of feel rough and gritty and sandpapery on one side, and that is to prevent you from slipping and falling. Staircases should be well lit, clear of clutter. When you have children, that's hard to do. And if you have any carpeting that's loose or handrails that's loose, I would recommend getting a handyman to come in and make those adjustments to prevent tripping and give stability when on the stairs. Steps, if they can be painted, paint them brighter colors, and that way people can see them as they go in and out of the house. As a matter of fact, my garage has, I think it's a dark gray step, and as I'm doing this show and preparing for the show this summer, I'm going to paint them yellow or orange or whatever happens to be on sale at the paint store, because I don't want a tripping hazard in my house. And by doing these types of things and researching, I learn too. A true expert is someone who continues to learn once they've learned it all, and I continue to learn every day, and I would challenge you to do that too. Pets are a fall hazard. My dog gets very excited, and so when I say the word treat or the word pig ear or the word go see, he goes nuts. And if I say, hey, would you like a treat? And we go to the kitchen, he has almost knocked me over several times. The 55-pound dog, I am a normal size adult, and he almost took my legs out from under me. And there's a product out there called Yax Tracks. I think you can get them at places like REI. I'm sure Amazon has them. And it's not really a galosh. It's kind of like a rubber piece that looks like a little bit like a web or a net. And on the bottom, it's got very grippy metal material. It's not exactly spikes or cleats, but it does prevent you from slipping on the ice. Don't wear them inside, they'll ruin your floors, but outside, especially if it's icy, they're great. Clear outside steps after it snows. Use salt, use sand. Sand? But they don't sell sand. Yes, they do sell sand, and sand will not ruin grass. So you can put down sand, it adds traction. It depends. If it's super, super cold out, some of the ice melt will not work because the outside temperature is actually below the melting point that the liquid or the ice becomes once you put the snow melt on it. Those are times to use sand. I also have at my home a downspout that goes right onto a walkway, and I can pay to have that downspout empty into the ground for like $30,000 or $40,000. Instead, I buy a $10 thing of sand every winter, and I spread the sand out where that discharges so that nobody slips and falls. If we have young children at home, most pieces of furniture like a bookcase or a television has a strap that you can put into the wall. This is so a child does not, or even a cat, that's kind of a joke, but so that if the item, the television, the bookcase gets knocked over, it's not going to fall on a child's head. So you want to anchor furniture to the wall to prevent tip-overs. If your children ride bicycles, scooters, skateboards, insist that they have protective gear, helmets, elbow pads, knee pads. And lighting is a major issue. Dimly lit areas result in people not seeing tripping hazards. People will trip and fall. Next, we're going to talk about mitigation for fires and burns. Cooking fires are the top cause of home fires and home injuries. According to the NFPA, that's the National Fire Protection Association, heating equipment is the leading cause of home fire deaths. Electricity, smoking, and candles pose their share of fire hazards too. So there are simple steps that you can take to reduce fire hazards. Number one, let's talk about candles. We all love it when things smell nice. So candles and other sources of open flames should be out of reach of children and cats and away from anything flammable. Don't put a candle in front of your cloth drapes. If it's too close, it could possibly start the drapes on fire. As a matter of fact, in a future episode, we will be talking with Restoration One, who is a fire mold criminal cleanup company, and they recently had a client who left the candle burning. I don't know if they left the house or left the room. I think they left the house, and the entire house went up in flames because it was too close to something that caught fire. So be present in the room when you have a candle going. If you're not sure about that, there are products out there, Febreze. You can get a wax, a heated wax thing. You can get a diffuser with essential oils. There's all sorts of other things to make your home smell nice. I would urge you to use them because they are less dangerous. Also, talking about fire, you want to stay with your food while it's cooking. It is so easy to throw something in the toaster oven and walk away, and then when you come back, your cabinets are on fire. Stay in the kitchen, or at least have somebody stay in the kitchen to monitor cooking, because cooking mishaps are the number one cause of fires, and it's most likely to occur when the stove is unoccupied. We also should be using the back burners of the stove, especially if we have children, because they can't reach them. So small children might reach up, the front burners might be on, and then they receive a burn. So whenever possible, use the back burners. Exhausts need to be kept clean, meaning get your chimney swept, and also 2 to 4 times a year clean out the dryer vent, or hire someone to clean out the dryer vent. A close friend of mine moved into a new home. It was a rental. And after he was there a week, someone went to go do laundry. No one had cleaned the dryer vents, and the house was a total loss. He had to live in an extended stay area until he found a new home. And once he found the new home, he was fine. Nobody got hurt. They all got out. But wow, is that scary. Yesterday, we had our dryer looked at because the belt broke. And I'm a little bit handy, but I'm not appliance handy like that. So we had someone come out. I actually looked inside the dryer to see how linty it was, and it was pretty clear. So when it gets a little warmer out, I'm going to go into the backyard. I have a very long brush that attaches to a drill. I will drill through the ductwork and remove any loose lint. Interestingly enough, what you can do is you can keep that lint in a plastic baggie and use it as kindling. It is very, very combustible. Not quite flammable, but it's combustible. And a great way to start a bonfire or a fireplace fire. Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. We're going to talk about this in the second half of the show when we interview Yale Wolk, who is a property inspector. But it is very important to have working smoke detectors. That is how I tell when my dinner is done, when the smoke detector goes off, which was the old joke in my house. I also make the joke that, hey, maybe we should start cooking with Tums as an ingredient. So smoke alarms should be either inside each bedroom or right outside each bedroom, and a carbon monoxide detector needs to be within 15 feet of any sleeping area. I was recently told that there's a law in Illinois that says you can no longer have battery-powered smoke detectors, that they had to be an integrated battery in the unit. One of my smoke detectors at home is that. The other two are batteries. They last for 10 years. So what you should do is there's usually a little sticker on the inside. It'll stay installed on, and then a line. That line is for you to write the date. That line is not for you to write ceiling, installed on ceiling. It is for a date. I've actually seen that online. I thought it was quite funny, and I wanted to share it here. Smoke detectors need to be tested monthly, or if you make dinner every night, that is a test. I'm joking, guys. So smoke detectors should be tested monthly. I would recommend that when no one's home, because it's a quite annoying chirp, and batteries should be replaced if it is a battery unit when you change your clocks. Fire departments all across the country have public education where you're supposed to change your batteries, change your clocks, change your batteries. 10 years, buy a new one. Buy a new carbon monoxide detector, buy a new smoke detector. Space heaters are a huge cause of fire. So you want to have your space heater away from anything that can possibly catch fire. I use a space heater in 2 areas in my home. One is in the wintertime when I take a shower, because there's an insulation issue and it's freezing, and I'm in the bathroom with the space heater. The other one is my garage. So if it's wintertime or a little chilly, I have a very small space heater in my garage, and it is put pretty much in the middle of the garage, away from any wood or anything that's chemicals on the sides that would possibly ignite. Fire extinguishers are critical. You have to have fire extinguishers anywhere that there is a source of heat. Kitchen, because you have an oven, you have a stovetop. Laundry room, because there's a dryer that heats up, that's a source of heat. Furnace room, and a lot of times the utility room has the water heater, the furnace, the washer dryer in it. You don't need more than one in there. And then the garage. That's another area that you can potentially have a fire. So keep ABC, that's my recommendation, although it's not the end all and be all, but keep ABC extinguishers in those areas. If you are doing a bonfire in the backyard, I have a fire pit, I absolutely love it. Make sure that there is something to put a fire out. Could be, you could take one of your fire extinguishers outside. Mine happens to be right next to my hose, so if there ever was a problem, I just turn on the water and put out the fire. You know how you put out a fire? You put the wet stuff on the red stuff. Water heater should be kept at about 120 degrees or less, because at higher temperatures, children and even adults could get burned when they're bathing. So the lower the temperature, obviously you want hot water when you take a shower or when you're doing laundry, etc. But 120 degrees is the recommended temperature setting. The next one is a little bit scary. It is choking and suffocation. Obstructed airways can be fatal. And there's 3 main types. There's suffocation, choking, and strangulation. So child-resistant locks on airtight spaces like refrigerators ensure a child doesn't crawl in, get stuck. Cribs have to have safe slat distances between the bars. Modern cribs are safe. If you're inheriting a crib, you're going to want to measure that. Make sure it's no more than 2 3/8 inches or 6 centimeters from one bar to the next. And that's about the width of 2 fingers. Plastic bags should be kept out of reach of children. We all love to keep our plastic bags, our Jewel bags, Walmart bags, underneath the kitchen sink. But unless there's a child safety lock on there, a child could go in, put the bag over his head, and then suffocate. For children, the firmest mattress is the best choice. Make sure it springs back quickly and fits well in the crib. There should be no spaces for the baby to slip in between the mattress and the outer walls of the crib. And avoid keeping anything else in the crib for a child less than 1 year old, especially soft items like pillows and quilts. Child could fall into these objects and get their airway obstructed. Choking is also equally as scary, especially when you have a child who's choking, who can't breathe. Could be a piece of food stuck, could be a part of a toy. And we need to take precautions. So make sure children chew their food thoroughly and don't swallow large bites, even if the food is very, very good. Sometimes grandma's cooking is so good, the kids wolf it down and boom, all of a sudden they're choking. Make sure that if you have to cut food for your child, it's fingertip sized pieces. The smaller, the better, the easier it is for the child to eat. And we also want to make sure that there's not small objects that young children play with, like bits of toys, marbles, jewelry that children could easily choke on. Another choking thing is if we don't know the child's history as far as allergies, we don't want to serve peanuts, seeds, popcorns, gum, whole grapes, and hard candy to children under the age of 4 years old, ideally up to about age 7. Cut hot dogs and sausages lengthwise and then a second time into smaller pieces to make them safer. Next, strangulation. That's when something goes around the neck. It cuts off the airway and it also cuts off the blood flow to the brain. Window cords are responsible for one child death a month on average due to strangulation. Growing up, one of my classmates, and I was young, I was in elementary school, her little brother got tangled up in the phone cord. And back in the day, the phones had cords, and he strangled himself to death. The poor kid passed away, and I felt bad for the family. I was not close with them, and I was a little kid, so I really didn't know how to react. Keep cords away. And when I say cords, not just window cords, I mean power cords, computer cords, cords for headphones, that type of thing. Keep them out of the reach of children. It's so cute when a little baby wears a headband or a necklace. Here's my advice. Don't do it. It is a strangulation hazard. It is also very convenient to hang a purse and a bag on a chair, on a crib, or anywhere a toddler could reach. When my son was maybe 2, we had a very expensive Canon SLR camera that his mother left on the dining room table, but the neck strap was dangling, and he grabbed it, and my $700 lens snapped off, broke off. I was not happy with it. I was happy he wasn't hurt, but we had to buy another lens, and that's one of the things that a toddler can reach and break. Nobody got hurt except for my wallet. Pacifiers also should not be hung around a baby's neck or clothing. There are hoodies, belts, waistbands. They all have strings or they all have elongated parts. Be very cautious. If you're giving a child, like a toddler, a hoodie, cut the strings. Remove the strings. Make sure you keep an eye on any children in strollers and or car seats because we don't want them getting stuck in the straps and strangled. We talked about this earlier with poisoning. Poisoning affects people of all ages. So younger children are more susceptible because they can get into cleaning supplies and toxic products. They overdose on vitamins and medicine. The old Flintstones thing, that was a great commercial. And they tasted like candy. Now we have gummy vitamins. Now we have gummy supplements. They taste like candy. They're delicious. But we have to monitor children who are taking them so that they don't overdose on them. I used to watch Chicago Fire, and there was a call where a child was eating gummy bears. Gummy bears are great. They're delicious. But they were cannabis infused, and the child was very lethargic, non-responsive, and had to go to the hospital. And of course, it's fiction, but it applies to the conversation today. There's also something called carbon monoxide poisoning and lead poisoning. These are things that have to be monitored. Preventing poisoning is relatively easy. It's just a matter of keeping household cleaning supplies, paints, chemicals up high on shelves or shed or out of children's reach. Keep them away from drinks. Do not put something in your refrigerator that is not edible next to the juice boxes. Keep any chemicals, anything that is not safe to consume away from drinks, especially if they are toxic. And if you can't store them out of reach, there are child safety locks to secure lower cabinets. That's what I did when my children were young. Another choking hazard, poisoning hazard, is batteries, especially those button batteries. They pose poisoning and choking risks. You want to take special care because children can put them in their nose, ears, or mouth. I have a cousin, he's 10 years older than me, and he was famous for sticking grapes up his nose. It was hilarious. He even did it as an adult. Never to the point where he needed to go to the hospital, but I didn't want to eat those grapes afterwards either. If we have visitors in our house, make sure or ask them if they have any medications in their purse, because we don't want them to leave their purse. A child who's curious, go into the purse and then take the medicines. Children are relentless, and sometimes they feel no shame going through other people's belongings. So don't use old drink bottles, food containers to store household cleaners or toxic chemicals. This is very confusing. When my parents were newly married, my father was very sick. He had the flu or a cold or something like that. And my mom kept giving him aspirin to control his fever. What she didn't know is he used the old aspirin bottle to put sleeping pills in, and she nearly killed him because she kept giving him sleeping pills and couldn't figure out why. Oh, he must not feel well. He's sleeping. No, it was sleeping pills, and he didn't know the difference. So use the containers that have the items in them. Do not reuse the containers. Now, I reuse pill bottles when I go into my garage and I clean guns. But I'm not putting other pills in it. I'm putting chemicals in it so that if I spill it, I only spill a little bit. Gun cleaning is a totally different topic for another time. We need to be responsible with medications and dispose of them safely. Many villages, fire departments, police departments, and even some drugstores have medicine turn-in bins where you can turn in old medicine. This is very critical if there is a person who is in the home. I will leave you with this. Put this number in your phone. It is the poison control number, 1-800-222-1222. That's 1-800-222-1222. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please stay tuned for our next segment, which will feature Yale Wolk, who is a property home inspector and is going to be talking about the types of hazards to look for and identify when selecting a new home. Thank you, and I will talk to you soon. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.